The music from the downstairs hummed softly in the background as you were sitting awkwardly in the room with Jungkook. Everyone else had gone down to dance, but Jungkook had stayed behind, and you, well, you just didn't feel like joining the crowd either. Your brother's engagement party was in full swing, but here you were alone with him, your heart thudded in your chest. Jungkook, your brother's best friend and your crush for as long as you could remember. He was 3 years older than you, and you had always thought he would go for someone his age, someone more his type. Still, there was this unspoken pull between you two that you could never ignore. Jungkook leaned back on the couch, his eyes were slightly glazed from the drinks he had had earlier. He looked relaxed, but there was something about the way he kept glancing at you that made your skin tingle with awareness. Why didn't you go downstairs with the others? You felt goosebumps when he suddenly spoke. His voice was casual, though there was a hint of curiosity. You shrugged, trying to act normal even though you could feel your pulse quickening. There was already so much tension in the room when you realized you were alone in a room with a guy you have the biggest crush. I'm not really in the mood to dance. Jungkook smirked, his dark eyes met yours. Not in the mood? It's your brother's engagement party. You should be having fun. I am. I just wanted some quiet for a bit. Your heart was literally thumping in your chest, and you fear if he would hear that too. Whenever he talks to you, you just get nervous. He hummed in response as if considering your words. You could clearly see he was drunk and his voice was husky. One more weakness of yours. He's already so perfect, and now he's just making you go crazy by talking like that. Quiet, huh? You are always the quiet one when we are all hanging out. Your heart skipped a beat. He noticed that. You cleared your throat, feeling heat rise in your cheeks. I'm not that quiet. Yeah, you are, he said, and his smile widened slightly, at least around me. You blinked, caught off guard by his comment. You fidgeted with your dress, unsure of what to say. I don't know. Maybe I just don't have much to say. He leaned forward from the couch, and even though there was a bit distance between you both, you could still breathe his scent. Or maybe you are nervous around me, he said, locking his eyes with yours. Goosebumps prickled your skin at the way he said it, his voice low, almost teasing. Your heart was racing now, your mind was scrambling for something to say that wouldn't give you away. Why would I be nervous around you? You replied, trying to laugh it off, though it came out shaky. Jungkook chuckled softly. I don't know, you tell me. You swallowed hard, feeling like the air between you was thick with tension. Every glance, every word felt charged with something unspoken. Your skin burst, and you could feel the heat of his gaze on you. You tried to change the subject to break the tension. Are you not going downstairs because you are too drunk? Jungkook tilted his head back slightly, looking amused. Nah, I'm not that drunk. You raised an eyebrow. Could have fooled me. He grinned while his smile was lazy and a little crooked. Okay, maybe a little tipsy, but I'm staying up here for other reasons. Your heart did a somersault. Other reasons? You asked, trying to sound casual, though your voice betrayed you. Jungkook's gaze softened, and for a moment it felt like he was seeing right through you. Yeah, maybe because I didn't want to leave you alone up here. You blinked and your breath caught in your throat. Was he teasing you, or was there something more? Your mind was racing, and before you could even process what was happening, Jungkook leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His eyes looked serious now. Wyan, there's something I've been wanting to tell you for a while. Your pulse quickened, and you could feel the tension rising between you, almost tangible. What is it? You asked, your voice was barely above a whisper. Jungkook hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck as if searching for the right words. He let out a small sigh, almost like he was frustrated with himself. I've been trying to ignore it, pretend like it's not a big deal, but it is. You stared at him, your heart was pounding so loudly you were sure he could hear it. What's the big deal? He looked up at you, and for a split second, you saw the vulnerability in his eyes, something raw and real. You, the way I feel about you. Your breath hitched, and the room seemed to spin for a second. Jungkook. He shook his head, cutting you off. I know I'm your brother's best friend. I know you're younger, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I can't keep pretending. You couldn't find any words. You had dreamed of hearing something like this from him, but now that it was happening, you were completely caught off guard. I like you, Ryan. I have liked you for a long time. The air between you felt heavy, and for a moment, all you could do was stare at him, trying to make sense of what he had just said. You had always thought it was one sided, that he saw you as just his best friend's little sister, but now everything was different. You took a shaky breath, and your mind was swirling with emotions. You, you like me? Jungkook nodded, his eyes never leaving yours. Yeah, I do. Jungkook noticed your hesitation, and instead of pressing forward, he stopped. He stepped back again, creating a small distance between you, giving you a room to breathe. I'm sorry if this is too much. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just needed you to know how I feel. Before you could say anything, your brother Jin came in the room. You quickly got up, and now the nervousness was visible on your face. Hey, what are you still doing up here? Everyone is dancing downstairs. You're really not coming? Your heart skipped a beat. I was just about to head down. Jin gave you a confused look when your voice came out shaky. You okay, Ryan? You nodded quickly, avoiding his eyes. I'm fine, I'll go now. Without another word, you rushed out of the room. Your heart was racing faster as you escaped. Jin watched you leave, then turned to Jungkook, raising an eyebrow. What's up with her? She's acting weird. Jungkook sighed, running a hand through his hair. I think I said something that surprised her. Jin frowned. What did you say? Jungkook gave a small smile, looking a little awkward. It's kind of complicated. After that night, you couldn't stop thinking about Jungkook's confession. Every time you remembered his words, your heart raced, but you still couldn't process it fully. You didn't know how to act around him, so you decided to avoid him. Maybe that would give you time to think. Days passed, and you avoided being alone with him. When he was around, you would find excuse to leave the room. At family gatherings, you stayed with others, laughing awkwardly, feeling his gaze on you but pretending not to notice. It wasn't easy, especially since your heart tugged towards him, but the confusion kept you at a distance. You were sitting alone on the back porch, lost in your thoughts. You didn't notice that Jungkook came there until he stood next to you. He just couldn't bear this silence anymore. The way you avoid him, he can't take it. Ryan, we need to talk, he said softly while you froze for a moment, not sure what to say. You had been avoiding this moment, hoping the awkwardness would pass, but now here he was standing in front of you, waiting for you to say something. Jungkook, I didn't see you coming. You again got nervous and avoided looking at him. He sat down beside you, leaving a small gap between you. I know you have been avoiding me. I just want to apologize for that night. I was drunk and I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. His tone was gentle but filled with frustration. You stayed quiet, feeling your chest tighten, but Jungkook took a deep breath. His voice grew more serious. Everything I said was true. I wasn't just saying it because I was drunk. I like you, Ian. I've liked you for a long time. Your breath caught in your throat and you finally looked up at him. His eyes were sincere, full of the same emotions that had been there the night he confessed. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to tell you, but I can't stand the silence between us. Like I ruined everything. His voice was almost pleading. You looked down again, biting your lip. You didn't ruin anything. You whispered in a barely audible tone. Jungkook leaned in slightly, his eyes were searching yours. Then why are you avoiding me? You hesitated for a moment while your heart was pounding in your chest. Because I didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't expecting it. But the truth is, I like you too. Jungkook's eyes widened and for a moment he seemed caught off guard. You like me? He asked. His voice was filled with surprise and hope. You nodded, still nervous but feeling a weight lift off your chest as the words finally came out. I've liked you for a long while, but I didn't think you saw me that way. I thought you would prefer someone else, someone your age. Jungkook let out a small laugh, shaking his head. Age doesn't matter to me, Ryan. I've always been drawn to you. The two of you sat there in silence for a moment. The tension between you started melting away, replaced by something softer. I just didn't know what to do after you told me. I wasn't avoiding you because I didn't feel the same. I just needed time to process it. You said feeling a little embarrassed. Jungkook smiled softly, feeling relief. I'm glad you told me. I thought I had scared you away. You shook your head, a small smile creeped onto your lips. You didn't, I just wasn't ready. He nodded while his expression softened. I don't want to rush anything, Ryan. I just needed you to know how I feel. You looked into his eyes, feeling more at ease now. I'm glad you told me. Jungkook smiled softly at your confession, and the tension between you eased. The night air felt cooler, calmer, but your heart still raced, this time in a good way. Without saying anything, Jungkook reached out, gently taking your hand. You felt a rush of warmth spread through your body, and when you looked up at him, he was already leaning in. Your breath caught in your throat as he slowly closed the gap between you. His lips brushed against yours softly, a light kiss that sent a wave of butterflies through your stomach. It was sweet and brief, but it made your heart skip a beat. Just as you were about to pull away, you heard someone shout, "Yeah, what are you two doing?" You both jumped apart, startled to see your brother Jin standing there with his fiancée, wide-eyed and completely shocked. Jin's mouth hung open in disbelief, his eyes darted between you and Jungkook. Oppa, you gulped and stood up. Are you serious? Here, of all places, what is this? He yelled, surprised but not completely. You felt your face turning bright red as you stammered, Oppa, it's not what it looks like. But before you could finish, Jungkook calmly stood up, grinning a little as he slid his hand into yours. Actually, it's exactly what it looks like. I like your sister Hyung, he said confidently. Jin looked even more shocked. What? Wait, do you like him too? He blinked, then turned to you. You bit your lip, feeling nervous under your brother's intense gaze, but you nodded, squeezing Jungkook's hand for support. Yes, I do. Jin's fiancée, who was laughing at Jin's overreaction, nudged him with her elbow. See, I told you they were cute together. Jin looked between the two of you, still processing everything, and finally let out a dramatic sigh. Unbelievable, he said, shaking his head, though there was a small smile creeping onto his face. Out of all the people, you had to pick my best friend? Jungkook chuckled, looking at you with a soft smile. I guess your best friend has good taste. Jin groaned, covering his face with his hand. I can't believe this is happening. You couldn't help but to giggle at Jin's reaction, feeling more relaxed now that Jungkook had taken control of the situation. Jin, though still playfully annoyed, finally lowered his hand and looked at you with a smile. Well, I guess if you are happy. Jin pointed a finger at Jungkook, but you better treat her well, or we are going to have problems. Jungkook held up his hands in a mock surrender. I promise, Hyung. You blushed even more, feeling embarrassed, but Jungkook just squeezed your hand and smiled at you. Deal. As Jin and his fiancée turned to walk back inside, you heard Jin mutter, I can't believe I walked in on that. Jungkook laughed softly, leaning down to whisper in your ear, don't worry, he'll get used to it. You both chuckled.